Again, you're listening to the Bishop's Roundtable. This is Bishop Andy C. Luter of the Hollywood Full Gospel Baptist Cathedral, joined by Bishop Stephanie Ritter Green of the Joshua Baptist Cathedral in Green Lawn, New York. I am very anxious to share with you who our special guest is. He's a well-known personality in our community, a business person, one that many of us know in a variety of capacities, some good and some under situations and occasions that's not so good. I'm delighted to share with you Joseph Slinger, who is the proud owner of the Slinger-Hasgill Funeral Home, a long-time business in our community. And so very delighted, Joseph, to have you in the studio tonight.
Thank you, Bishop. Good evening.
We want to start with just a couple of questions, and I want to begin here. You have assumed a business that's a long-standing pillar in our community. Many people of my age and older recall the name of Richard Haskell, member of the NAACP, actually president of the NAACP, not only a funeral home director, but a civic leader, a community resource. You have stepped into some rather enormous shoes, and so I suppose my first question to pose is, what does it feel like to take over a legacy business like that of Hasgill Funeral Home?
It's a big challenge trying to uphold the standards that was set by those before me, and trying to create new ones to take it into the future.
And what kinds of things have you done to take it into the future and make it distinct from your antecedents?
Well, the building, as you know, is over 50 years old.
Okay.
And went under a great renovation, as you see it now.
Sure.
So it's just the ideas that we came up with, the flat screens in the chapel, to do a presentation of the loved one to display it on the screen. So there's a few things that we have done.
Now, Richard Haskell was a outstanding member of the African-American community. He catered, obviously and apparently, to the African-American community. But our community has changed drastically. I noticed that when I'm in your facility, you're multicultural, you're very diverse, yourself, you are able to speak multiple languages. How has the market that you have inherited changed?
It changed in a sense where, because of the economy, people are now not just coming in at the time of the person passing, but they're coming beforehand and making pre-arrangements, or even coming in for a consultation.
Alrighty.
To get themselves prepared. So they are not surprised by prices, by anything that could offset them. They're coming in beforehand and trying to obtain knowledge.
Now, we've talked about this before, because there was a spell and a time when the business was suspended somewhat because you were renovating. The building went through a fire, you had to rebuild the building, and during that time there was kind of a shift in the market, and so much of the support that had literally belonged to Hasgill Funeral Home and had somewhat monopolized became divided, and families began to scatter. How have you responded to that, and what have you done to recapture the market share that was originally owned by Hasgill Funeral Home?
Well, I just continue to do what Mr. Haskell has done in the community, and being that those families that he served scattered have now started to come back to the funeral home. Good,
so good to hear. Good to
hear. Well, my question, and it was interesting, I was just sharing in Virginia with Pastor Hazel Thomas, overseer Benita Jackson. I was sitting at a table and we were talking about the shifts in dynamics with young people today. And we were saying, I was sharing that I had read in the newspaper in Philadelphia, they had a week-long series about the way young people mourn and grieve their loved ones, and that it pretty much started perhaps at the scene of the crime. A little bit later that afternoon there would be candles and bottles and people hanging out mourning. Maybe the next day some arrangements would be made, the following day t-shirts. What are the shifts that you've seen in the dynamics? When we were growing up, you had two suits. You had your good suit for church, you had your good suit to go to funerals, basically. And so what are the shifts in the dynamics that you've seen in your business?
As far as their dress?
Yeah, everything, yeah.
People are coming as you are.
Okay.
Come as you are.
Yeah.
It's not really a dress code anymore.
Okay.
As far as you have to wear a suit for a funeral.
All right. Okay. I have to share this, Bishop, and I'll pose a question behind it. I was at a funeral in Philadelphia. A young man had been, his life had been taken, and it came time for a music selection. And so they pulled the CD player out, and I assumed that someone was going to praise dance or sing to an instrumental. And they put Mary J. Blige's song on, and they began to throw their hands up. Mary J. Blige said, I can't even remember the song. What is it? I can't remember the song, but she was throwing her, they were like, if you love the person, just throw your hands up. And everybody in the funeral home, except for me, had their hands up and was waving it, and I was thrown back, you know. And so, you know, what's happening with regards to religion in services and things of that nature?
Well, some people, there's, how can I put it? As far as religion, some people are losing it.
Okay,
It's
you can
really,
put it just like that.
It's really not there in our young people,
Uh-huh.
especially when their lives are taken.
All right.
You don't see it.
Okay.
So, as far as music, all different kinds of music are being requested to be played. Whether it be Tupac or
Wow.
something, it has been requested to be played in the funeral home. And to a certain extent, I would allow the families to play what would make them comfortable at that time.
All right.
Whether it be Sam Cooke, Otis Redding,
Wow.
B.B. King, things of that nature have been played in the funeral home, and it made, if that was what Daddy listened to, then we played it.
Right. Okay.
So the CDs of the hymns and the anthems that used to reside on your shelf are now joined by CDs of other artists, other genres, other musical types.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jazz, R&B, gospel, whether it be with words or instrumental. It's an array of music that have been played.
You know, the question that Bishop just raised leads me to a question and an observation, and that is, I have begun to see more and more public memorials or public displays of mourning and grief that's no longer confined and restricted either to the church house for the funeral or even the funeral home. But you can go up and down the street, Sunrise Highway 110. There are floral arrangements. There are flowers that are stacked up in places, obviously, where people lost their life. And there seemingly is this whole new interest in memorializing an individual at the spot of their departure, as opposed to a place with a bit more solemnity, a bit more dignity, like a funeral home or a church. Are you seeing that as well? And how do you account for that?
Well, what we're seeing is that, like you said, it's pretty much at the scene of where the person passed away. Whether it be flowers, candles, T-shirts.
40 ounces.
40 ounces.
I've seen it all.
Hennessy bottle.
Yes, yes.
Blunts scattered around the funeral home.
Yeah.
You know,
Really?
Yeah, the Philly blunts, the cigars that they, and all the insides are scattered all over the funeral home. So outside, of course. So it's what you